and welcome to Romantasy Readers Podcast. My name is Nicole and I am very excited. I'm here with my wonderful, sensational co-host, Ellie. We have a very, very special guest for you today. We are joined by New York Times best-selling author, one of my favorite romantasy authors of literally all time, Danielle L. Jensen. Welcome to Romantasy Readers. Thank you so much for coming. How are you today?
I am wonderful. Thank you so much for having me. I am very excited for all the questions that you have and to discuss the books and to go later into the spoiler zone and talk about that ending.
That ending. Yes, absolutely.
That ending that literally blew our minds. Yeah. So, I mean, where this all started, I've been reading your books since I started my romantasy journey, probably like everyone with Sarah J. Maas. Got to the end of that and I had nothing to read. I could not find any authors, anyone that was even in the realm of sort of those books. And then I stumbled upon The Bridge Kingdom and I just fell in love with it. I fell in love with Aaron. I fell in love with Lara. It was just amazing. What has that journey been like for you? What has your writing journey been and entering sort of this romantasy genre?
So writing is not my first career. I have a finance degree. I worked in corporate finance for a long time, and
Nice.
writing started as a hobby for me, but it was a hobby that I liked a lot more than my job. So I decided to take the plunge, go back to university, to get an English literature degree, which I did not focus on creative writing. No logic there, but was working on various novels, trying to get published, trying to get an agent. And my first book that was picked up by my agent and subsequently published was my YA debut, which is Stolen Songbird. And it is effectively young adult romantasy, because romantasy itself is it's not new. It's been an established genre in YA for longer than I've been an author.
Yeah.
So that's where I started, but there really was no ability to get much published in the adult space. If you wrote what we would view as an adult romantasy now, publishers were not interested in it. They wanted the traditional epic fantasies that we all love, but are, a different beast. And so, when you wrote romantasy, they always wanted you to make it appropriate for the teenage market, make it about teenagers, and all that song and dance. When I first started writing Bridge Kingdom, I knew I wanted it to be older, and I knew I wanted it to be about adult characters and have adult situations and be a more mature version of what I've already been writing. And I was really fortunate enough that Audible was interested in publishing that for me. And they weren't as fussed about trying to fit me in a specific shelf section, because it's on Audible. They can put it anywhere they wanted. So it was really cross-posted between romance and fantasy. And that's where I started. It was in the audiobook market. And then I just independently published the print and ebook editions. And, but it was weird at the time because there wasn't that much out there that was like that. Sarah, of course, but she was still publishing in the YA market at that point. I mean, those books now are moved to adult, but there was no comps for me. There was no market except there was this huge demand. And so it really grew out of the independent publishing space. People knew readers wanted this, knew that they could sell these books, and everybody was interested in writing them. And it just, no publisher at that point was really interested in publishing.
Yeah. So, little did they know what the future was going to hold. It's interesting because, I mean, don't want to admit age here, but we're all this generation that we kind of went through Twilight. Like, I can't believe that was 20 years ago, but it was. And obviously at that age, we were all young. That was kind of appropriate at that time, but we've all grown up. We're all adults now. We still want those fantasy romance novels, but we want them to be adult. And it's like these books, they've kind of matured with us, that now they kind of meet what we're needing in today's day, that we still want that, but we also want adult romance, we want spice, we want grown up kind of FMCs and MMCs that are, they're mature, they know who they are, but they're going on these big journeys. So
Yeah.
I love that that's in your books.
Me too.
And we complain on this podcast all the time because we are both older. We are not 20 years old, like most of the heroines in the space. That it does feel like publishers are still not fully caught up with the demands of the market, because they're not quite open to somebody who's above maybe the age of 25.
I think that they are more than people think. I think that there is a lot of meat that comes from the early 20s experience that is authors are really drawn to. And, there's still a lot of new experiences. And so I think that authors there's still a tendency to write these college age type heroines even in the fantasy space. I think that it's going to continue to age up as people explore different experiences, as they get bored of writing a particular character type, and that we are going to start seeing older heroines. Certainly in Bridge Kingdom, Lara is young, Zara is in her mid-20s, and Anna in her books is into the latter half of her 20s. So for me, I'm already going that direction. I am interested in a more mature heroine, just because I have written a lot of younger people making young people mistakes. And now I want to write about older people making older people mistakes.
Exactly.
We will
and
be
30 is the new 20, as people say. So.
Yeah. We will be lining up to buy those.
40 is the new 30.
I love that you have a background in finance, because I feel like that comes through so clearly in the Bridge Kingdom series, especially the first two. I mean, like when I first read them, I read them in ebook, and then didn't actually do the Audible version until just a month ago, when I decided to reread for this. And I remember sitting there thinking, like, man, the trade economics here are just so fascinating.
I do, yes, have that knowledge base. And I just generally really like the complexity of adding in a lot of political intrigue. Yeah. I like it to make sense within the world that I've created. And that's not for everybody. Some people find that stuff really boring, but I personally, you're never going to get one of my books without a healthy dose of political intrigue. So if you don't like it, I'm not your girl.
Yeah. Well, I loved it. I just remember, because I think the first time I read them, I read them so fast. I inhaled them. And so on the reread and the re-listen, I really could appreciate more of the world, because I wasn't just like, what is going to happen?
Exactly. Just being obsessed with the romance and just ignoring the rest of it. We actually, on the second read, you actually get to appreciate all those little Easter eggs and the actual world that you're building and the complexities within it, which is great. So tell us a little bit, for our listeners that haven't read your books, do you want to tell us a little bit about The Bridge Kingdom and A Fate Inked in Blood, which I know are probably your two biggest books that you might like to tell people about?
Sure. So Bridge Kingdom is an interestingly structured series in that it's a series of duologies. People who are familiar with the romance market know series of standalones like Bridgerton, similar to that, but with duologies. And so they're all connected, and all the characters are, floating around throughout, even when it's not their point of view novels. So it is a bit of a different beast that way, although I think we're starting to see more people following my lead on that front, so which I like. But the Bridge Kingdom series, the first duology, is about a princess named Lara. She's been raised with her sisters in isolation. She's been trained to be a spy and an assassin, so she has all the skills that go along with that, and she's sent to the Bridge Kingdom, which is a nation that controls trade via a bridge through sort of these storm-tossed seas. And she's sent as a bride of peace, but her real goal is to infiltrate and bring down the defenses so that her father can take over the bridge. And of course, when she meets her new husband in hot tub.
Oh.
We have a hot tub fan here.
We're going to talk about that.
Of course, things don't go quite as she planned. And so the first duology is about Lara and Aaron. The second duology is about her brother, Karis and Zara. And the third duology is about Aaron's twin sister, Anna, and James. So
very, very exciting. I love, and I'm going to sidetrack here for a minute, but something I noticed that like when I was kind of looking at your books, and I noticed that they're nearly all around water. Like they're all around, like obviously the Bridge Kingdom is Typhoon Seas. And then obviously there's Dark Shores, which is kind of your pirate princess and all that. And then you've got A Faked in Blood, which is obviously Vikings. And have you always had like a fascination with water and the ocean and the seas? Or is that just a coincidence that that's always been a big part of your books?
I get horrifically seasick. I'm like Laura. So I can't even be on a cruise ship. I still get seasick. So I know it's not a love of the ocean in the sense of a personal love of seafaring. I hate it actually. But I think when you write historical fantasy and you don't have the benefits of modern transportation, cars, airplanes, that kind of thing, unless you're using a magical device, which I certainly do use in the Dark Shores series. Sea travel is the fastest way to go a long distance in a reasonable amount of time. So, it's a very convenient form of travel. It serves as a barrier between nations and cultures. It serves as a transition space. So it's just a really effective tool for a lot of different things, but not one of those things is not that I love it. I don't like the waves at all.
Oh, neither do I. I still have nightmares around. I went on holidays in Thailand and I went on this tour, and I call this like boat the spawn of Satan because it was the worst like trip I've ever done in my life. I was sick within 15 minutes. So was like 3/4 of the boat. It was a nightmare. So do not share a love of the seas either.
You'll find me hanging over the edge, throwing up.
Yeah, same, right there with you. I think this one was really interesting was like in the Bridge Kingdom, on my second read through, I didn't realize there wasn't magic in this world. Like I kind of went away kind of thinking, hang on a sec, there's no magic here. Like, because we obviously read A Fading in Blood that had magic. Dark Shores, there was like the blend of like two characters that had magic and two that don't have magic and more have like physical strength. And I kind of went, wow, this actually doesn't have magic in it, but it has this magical feel, I think, because of the Typhoon Seas and this world that's created. And it's very kind of, well, it's not magic, it's got a magic feel to it. Like, I don't know if anyone else feels that way, but
yeah,
I definitely do.
Yeah, I mean, it is it's not common, I'd say, to encounter a fantasy series where there isn't a fairly strong romantic element, or not romantic, a magical element. Wake up here. But I was watching House of the Dragon.
yes.
And Game of Thrones, actually, if you take the dragons out, there isn't that. Most of the characters have no magic.
Yeah.
I mean, there is some supernatural with the White Walkers, the dragons, a few other things, but for the most part, very few of the characters have any sort of supernatural power to them. And so that's a pretty big famous one where you're dealing with characters who are achieving their ends with very human capacity type things
and politics and
and for me, the thing that was one of my motivations behind writing The Bridge Kingdom without magic is that I had been reading so many novels where magic solved everything. Magic was just they would just level up. It was like a video game. You would just get another power every time you encountered an adversary or an obstacle that you needed to encounter. And you were getting these, such overpowered characters that they almost ceased to be human. And it seemed sort of not very feasible that any problem would potentially stymie them in the long run. And I was really sick of that. And so I wanted to write a story where the heroes had to solve their problems with intelligence, with physical skill, with being clever, and that type of stuff. And so Bridge Kingdom was born kind of out of my own annoyance at what I was seeing in the market.
That's great. So on that note, when you are writing, what do you feel like, how does inspiration come to you? Do you get a vision of the characters? Do you have a feeling of the world that you want to write? Is it some combination of all those things? What goes into
It's
coming
not
up with
always
it?
the same. It does depend a little bit on the book, but generally speaking, I usually have an idea of the inciting event. So the thing that gets the plot rolling. The beginning scene with Lara and her sisters at the dinner table in Bridge Kingdom was a scene that sat in my mind for a really, really long time. And the idea of a nation that could control through some sort of structural setting device trade between all other nations. And so that was the beginning of the idea, and then it grew and grew and grew. At Fadington Blood, I was absolutely in love with the original Vikings television series, particularly with the character Lagatha. I just loved her so much. I thought that she should have been the main character of the whole series. And so A Fadington Blood was very much my homage to Lagatha's character in that series. And so it really does depend on, each book is different, but I get the idea and then it grows and grows. And when I feel like I know the world and I know the people and I know what I want to write, and that's when I open the Word document and start typing.
It's amazing. We were just talking about how challenging it must be, like, to actually write a book. Like, we obviously love books, and you do often, you've got your normal day-to-day 9 to 5 job that you do, but then you've got what you would love to do. But to physically sit down and write, 50 chapters of a book is a huge, huge challenge. And Alicia is having a go. I do the odd chapter, and then I just can't stay connected to it in that way. But yeah, was there a moment for you where you kind of were able to bring it together, or was it going and doing that sort of extra study outside, that helped you to learn sort of the structure of writing, or was it just sort of a passion that you just worked at your craft till it came together?
I had always been, I would say that I wrote a lot of mental fan fiction. So I wasn't writing it down, but I created it and I thought about it a lot. And I have always been that way since I was a child, that, if I liked a book or a movie, I would just create my own stories in the world, which is because fan fiction, that's what you're seeing on Wattpad and whatnot. But, and I did write quite a bit when I was a kid, but as far as, I did also create my own stories, and I would just have them sort of, when I was bored, I would draw them up and fill them in and create them and change pieces. And so I've always been a storyteller, and it's never been difficult for me to create a full plot and hold it in my head. What of course was new is when I first started trying to write it down in novel form. And it was hard, and I wasn't very good at it. And my first attempts were terrible and are deleted. You couldn't even find them. But it was never that challenging for me to finish because I had already been creating these sort of finished product in my head. So it was just a matter of developing the skill to transcribe what I had in my head onto the paper, and the practice of learning the art of writing good prose and developing that. And that is a lifelong skill, of course.
Yeah. Amazing. Oh, it's great to know there's hope for us yet. If we kind of watch Game of Thrones and we tried to rewrite season 8 in our heads, obviously we've got hope that maybe we can pull a novel together in the future.
Yes.
So I feel like I want to quickly get to the end of the spoiler-free zone so we can just start to share everything.
Yeah.
So do you want to quickly give us a bit of a spiel about A Fadington Blood and what that's maybe about, just for anyone that hasn't read that novel yet?
Sure. So A Fadington Blood is about a woman named Freya. She is married to a fisherman and has been living very much a simple life and a fairly miserable life. But she's always aspired for more, dreamed of being a warrior. And she does have a secret, of course. And her secret is that she's one of what in my series I call Children of the Gods. They have a drop of blood from one of the Norse gods that gives them powers. And the most powerful thing it gives them is that they are the only people who are not bound to fate. So both gods and mortals are bound to fate, but the children of the gods, having a foot in both territories, are unfated. And there's a prophecy about her that says she will unite her kingdom beneath the one who controls her fate. So of course, men seeking power are seeking her, believing that she is going to be the one that will make them king. And she gets roped into a fairly nefarious deal with one of these men. And he has a very handsome son whom he sets as her bodyguard.
Oh, no.
And sparks fly as she encounters all sorts of trials in her path to finding her own fate.
I'm so excited to hear that she is actually quite inspired by Lagertha, because I loved that original Viking series and I loved Lagertha. She's just like, just your ultimate Viking FMC. So now that I think of that, I think, that's totally who I would imagine to like sort of play her. And I think you're right that she didn't really get that in that series. She was always almost a bit of a side character, and it's nice to put someone like that front and center and then have her with these potential magical powers. And I mean, this was an amazing book. Like, we just came out saying, wow, this is one of the best books of 2024. Just such an enjoyable, easy read. Even my mum, who doesn't read Romantasy, she heard me talking about it, and I had this book, and I got the special, like, I'm in Australia and I actually ordered the American one so I could get these special edges. And she's like, oh, I wouldn't mind reading a Viking book. She's like, can I borrow it? And I went, no, you can't borrow that. You can't borrow this one. I'll get you another one, not this one.
White edges only.
Exactly. But, it even, even for people who maybe aren't typically in the Romantasy genre, it's quite a good kind of introduction to some of these worlds, and just a really good read. So we're very thankful that you created it.
Oh, thank you.
We loved it.
Thank you.
All right. Well, Ali, do you have any final spoiler-free questions before we jump into spoiler zone?
I mean, of course I have more, but I really want to be in the spoiler zone.
Spoiler zone? Okay.
Yeah, I think it's time to move into the spoilers.
Okay. All right. So guys, anyone who has not read these books, go out and read them right now and then come back for the rest of this podcast. But we are jumping into the spoiler zone. So
are we doing spoilers for all books or just spoilers for
spoilers? Spoilers for all books. I would say Bridge Kingdom and A Fate Inked in Blood. I would really like to go just slightly into Dark Shores and Dark Skies, but we probably won't really go into the detail of that much, though, I'd say. So we might be, and I don't think Ali has read those books officially. So mainly Fate Inked in Blood and the Bridge Kingdom. Assuming you guys have read all these books, we're going to go into spoilers now. So welcome. Ali, do you want to start with the first question?
Yeah. So I think that a lot of people, myself included, maybe not a lot of people, but I was certainly surprised by a plot point where you've got Freya, who's married, and then she's remarried to her love interest's father. Married, yeah. light on that word. It was surprising to me that's not your like typical kind of romantasy trope or plot point. So what kind of inspired you for this particular aspect of the book?
For the first marriage or the second marriage or both?
Let's say both. Yeah.
Okay. So I mean, with the first marriage, I think that it's very classic for a romantasy character to have never had a serious relationship and never have been married. And it almost seems like people who have been married and fallen out of, that romance don't exist. And that annoyed me because I'm previously divorced. So, I like to think that there's life.
We deserve love too.
Life after, a failed relationship. And so, that was a big thing that I wanted to include. And as far as her marriage to Snorri, it's that I chose primarily as a romantic obstacle, because if she was just free to do whatever she wanted, she and Bjorn would have hooked up in the first third of the book. And You know,
There would have
there's
been no
not
slow burn.
really, it's not a forbidden romance then. So it, you know, it of course is a plot device. But the bigger reason that I chose it is because it throughout history has been such a mechanism for controlling women. So if you have all these people who are trying to control her, it makes sense for marriage to be used in a weaponized type of way to control her. And so that was one of the things that I wanted to explore, was just how in historical times, and even to a certain extent in modern times, that women are controlled by marriage. And I wanted to, you know, dig into that. And then of course it does give a huge obstacle for Bjorn and Freya to dance around.
Yeah, I was definitely very happy that Snorri's wife was very quick to be like, no, I don't want you to bed her. Like, let's just pretend. Let's just do this blood vow to, like, you know, make sure that, like, you can't tell anyone. But I was like, okay, good. I don't have to, like, experience that interesting spice scene that would have been. Definitely
Yeah,
what I would have
because I mean,
preferred to see. Like,
you know, it was important to me. I'm not writing an infidelity romance. I know when I first announced Fate, there was this sort of rumor going around, or this interpretation of like the brief 2 sentences that people had been given, that it was an infidelity romance, which is such a mischaracterization of this novel. It's not, because it's a marriage of politics, a marriage of control. There's no intimacy, there is no emotion, there's no fidelity between them beyond sort of what has been forced upon her, as she has to be loyal to him with her oaths. So you know, it would have been a very different type of book if there had been intimacy there, or, you know, even just like one fade to black sex scene would have really changed everything. And it wasn't a direction that I wanted to go.
yeah.
Nobody wanted me to go that direction. Everybody was going into that scene going,
wasn't there. But yeah, and I think it was so good because it was part of Freya's journey as well, that she kind of went from being very kind of controlled by her family, by her husbands, and still getting into this marriage going, I really have to do this to protect my family. And as you said, being controlled, and over the journey of the book, her sort of finding her own inner strength and her own power, and I guess starting to make her own decisions along the way, which was a really lovely journey as the reader to kind of see her go on that journey. Yeah, which was really amazing. Yeah. So I want to talk
You're
about.
just busy thinking about that. Oh yeah, it would have been gross if Snorri had.
Yeah, you got the mental image and you're like,
derails you when you think about that.
I want to jump into probably the biggest thing everyone wants to talk about, which is the ending of A Fate Inked in Blood. That ending. Can you tell us about it? Because a lot happened in those last like 20 pages, 50 pages, and our minds were a bit blown.
Yeah, I mean, so if you are a big romantasy reader, certainly, but even romance reader, there's tropes and you learn to identify them. And of course, this book does have plenty of them. And so any experienced romantasy reader is going to know that Bjorn is, that there is going to be a betrayal element of the plot, that he is not telling the full truth, and they're going to have some strong speculations that he is in fact working for the other side. If the only way you wouldn't necessarily pick up on that is if you don't read the genre, because, you know, it is a genre convention. And so I am always a little hesitant to call the end a twist, because I feel that it's a twist for Freya, but it's not a twist necessarily for the reader. The twist is, of course, that that his mother is still alive.
Yes.
That the other side that she's been raised to see as the villain, he's saying is not the villain. And he is in fact saying that Snorri is the villain of the full story, not Harold. And so, you know, that is the element that is the twist. And but it is, of course, dominated by the shock that Freya feels at finding out that Bjorn has lied to her, has betrayed her, and has in his own way manipulated and controlled her the same way every other man always has. And so it is a massive blow to their relationship, and and it's just so much worse for her with the life experiences that she's had, and it is a thing that is going to be a lot harder for her to come to terms with than someone who has never been hurt that way. And so
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, I mean, it's the ending has a lot going on. There's a lot of little clues that have been thrown into the ending in the chaos that will start to make a lot more sense when you get into the next book. But yeah, I mean, I love the ending of the book, but the twist to me is, of course, Saga still being alive.
Yeah,
Because-
exactly. I think there were, sorry, I'll let Ali go in a sec. I think there were hints along the way that, that Norland wasn't actually bad, that they're actually probably the good guys. And that, we kind of knew, as you said, that Bjorn was actually probably, this the
quite a
spy.
few hints dropped.
Yeah, exactly. So that wasn't really a shock, but I think definitely Mum being alive was a fairly, like, you kind of wondered, but it was definitely a bit of a shock for me that she was still alive. Yeah, as you say, there were lots of bits there, and I feel like I'm almost gonna have to go back and reread that now just to like see if I've missed any of the like major little Easter eggs that are sitting there.
The other shock for me was the display of her power in that particular moment, because we had started to see, that she's powerful. We knew that she has some connection to hell or a dark god of some kind. But the way that her power manifests in those last like few chapters when she's confronting King Harold, that to me was like, that was a big shock to me. So that was the twist that not a twist, but that was like the sucker punch of information.
Yes. I sometimes I forget that nobody else knows that's coming. And because I'm, of course, as I'm writing, know that because I'm leaving all these clues that she has these powers. So I'm like, oh yeah, I guess you might have been surprised about that.
Surprised. Like basically
I think that's what she was in that fight scene, and she had the crimson eyes. I think there was a bit of smoke coming out, so we kind of knew there was something nefarious going on. But then when she just curses them to hell, and suddenly they all go to hell, and it's like, oh, whoa, okay, she's a daughter of hell. Like, whoa.
Yeah, that was the big surprise.
Well, her anger is very and feminine rage is of course a big theme in this novel, and so it is to a certain extent a manifestation of her anger, and what happens with Bjorn and the betrayal that she feels is such an incredibly hurtful and crushing moment for her, but it also makes her so mad. She's just so mad that he's done this. And so her magic and how it comes out when she's lost control of her rage is very important to her character development, because anger in and of itself is not a bad thing. I mean, it's important to feel, but when your anger gets the better of you or starts to own you, that's when it can be, a problem, which we see. But, it's, I don't ever want anyone to come into this thinking that it's sort of saying, oh, female rage is bad and that you have to erase it and make it go away. It's not about that. It's about managing the things that are causing the rage. Mm-hmm. It's about, beating those things down, not about suppressing your anger and bottling it up.
Yeah. Well, she deserved to be pissed. She deserved to be mad in that moment. Mm-hmm. Like I think that was, it was a betrayal. He had ample opportunity to tell her. So
he did.
And I kind of liked her going into this badass kind of warrior woman when she did have that big battle, and she kind of had the crimson eyes and things like that, and she just went into this other zone. I was just kind of like, yes, like I love a bit of a villain, morally grey. So I don't even mind if she has a little bit of a dark side that maybe she has to work at controlling. But something I'd really like to understand, which I don't know if you'll be able to divulge too much about it, but being this daughter of hell and the whole conception, like how she came to be, can you, like, Hel's motivations and things in this. Can you talk at all to that and like maybe why she's come to be right now at all? Like why they did show up at her parents' place and come about creating Freya?
Well, I mean, it depends on how you want to look at fate, because there is a lot of, discussion over if your fate has already been written, if it is already known, are you making any of the decisions or is someone else making it for you? And there's various people have various opinions on that throughout, and they weigh in. So one could say that Hel was fated to do this. And then, of course, there's the argument of, it was written, but it was because they knew that she would do it. And so, yeah, it's Hel is a character in the second book, that I can say, as you get to know a bit more about her personality. And there isn't actually that much in Norse mythology there isn't as much written about her as you would think. And of course, this is all transcribed from oral sources, because they were oral storytellers, but there is not as much as you would think. And we have gods like Greek gods and Roman gods where we know so much about them because they wrote down everything.
Yes.
It was a culture of writing. And so there's just so much information on Hades and Persephone and, people like that. It's not the same level of like concrete information when you get into the Norse pantheon. There's a lot more room to maneuver in a way, because there's not sort of this canonical knowledge about exactly what they're like. And so, I did look a little bit at what, how Hel was presented in the source material, but it's not enough to create a character around. You have to build them up, especially since it is almost a modern convention in a lot of ways, or relatively modern, to give reasons why people do things. If you actually look at a lot of old storytelling, they don't necessarily give the like why is Loki playing tricks. They don't say, like, there's no motivation given. It's very much a modern storytelling convention for us to give the internal motivations of the characters for why. So in building someone like Hel, there's not that much that I can take from source. I had to take from what I could and make up the rest. So
that's kind of exciting as well, that you can kind of take that and kind of explore it and open it up to new ideas and possibilities.
Yeah, like if you're not creative and you don't want to make your own gods, they're not a great pantheon to choose. You should probably choose a very established one where people feel as though they know everything about these deities. But the Norse pantheon is very different. And of course, we're highly influenced by fiction that has been written, like the Marvel universe. Of course, everybody thinks that Thor looks a certain way, that Loki looks a certain way. We have these conceptions that are coming from not at all source material. So I do lean into that a little bit too. I know what everybody thinks that they know, and I do use it. So
on this note, so here on Romantasy Readers podcast, we like to do a little bit of theorizing about what may happen in future books, especially our fantasy books. Are there any aspects of Norse mythology that, if readers want to really do a deep dive and see if they can predict some things or just deepen their understanding of the world, that they should go look up?
I think if you read about the gods, that you are going to get some clues.
Okay.
But you don't have to, you don't have to go check a book of mythology. You could just go on Wikipedia and there'd be some clues there.
You don't have to super deep dive.
You don't have to dig that deep to find to find some of the clues. But yes, of course, I because I'm drawing from as much as I could from the existing what we know of the mythology. I do try to weave as many elements as I can, and as many things that we think we know, or common interpretations of certain characters and deities into the work. So yeah, there's lots of clues. If you know your Norse gods, you are a level ahead of everybody else. I'm predicting certain elements of the plot. We'll just say that.
Good.
I don't want to spoil anything.
So I'm really curious about, I guess, the relationship between Skarland and Norderland, because you've kind of outlined this world, and there's kind of these two sort of halves of the world ruled by one side Snorri and the other side's King Harold. Can you talk a bit more about what these worlds are like and maybe the grudge that exists a little bit between these two? Hopefully that's not too much of a spoiler for the next book, but
I mean, it's based on Scandinavian relationships between the countries. Like if you look at the history between Norway and Sweden, Finland, Denmark, it is very they've had their fair share of conflict, and some of them got along better than others. But there is just a very inherent nature of that sort of cultural phenomena to raid and to take, and so it is natural, I think, that you would have these two conflicting countries that are always at odds because they're raiding each other back and forth and killing and pillaging and taking. And so they just have this, long history of conflict between them that, is it profound? No, but I think it's very historically accurate and real.
yeah,
And as difficult for them to sort of set aside as if it was a religious difference or something like that.
Yeah. Have you gotten to spend much time in Scandinavia? Is that a place that
I have been, but not recently. So I should go back, obviously. Yeah, I need to go back.
Obviously. You have to go for research.
But yes, I have been. But I mean, there's the one good thing about living in our modern era is that you can see so much of a country online, and there's video tours of historical sites, and there's just so many resources that you can almost feel as though that you have been there. But I would say long overdue for a return visit.
I'm really glad you can do that online, because I do not cope in the cold. Like, I just do not cope whatsoever. I'm already complaining now because I'm in Australia and it's winter here, and I was just complaining that it's like 10 degrees, which I'm sorry, like
50.
Well, I'm Canadian, so I'm on metric.
Yeah.
Right.
And like, at least like
listening.
That's not cold. That's not cold at all.
No.
Well, I'm certainly used to the cold because Canada, we're pretty chilly. So the cold is an easy thing for me to write realistically, because I know like Freya's always cold. I actually know what that's like. I know what it's like to think that it's summer and then it just starts snowing. And it's really, I mean, it was snowing. It's June. It was snowing not 45 minutes from my house, like 2 days ago. People will say stuff like, oh, it's like an inconsistency because it's snowing, and she said that it's early summer. I'm like, no.
Yes, we complain because we don't even get snow. We just get the cold and the wind chill. Like, there's been all these TikTok videos recently of like Canadians and people from Ireland and things complaining about how cold Melbourne winter actually is, because they come here and they're like, oh, it's not cold. It's like, 10, 20 degrees, but it's actually, we get the wind from Antarctica and it's really, really cold. So it actually feels a lot colder than it is. But yeah, we don't even get snow. But yeah, it's the same for us. I'm in the middle of summer and suddenly it drops 10 degrees and it's like freezing all of a sudden. So
yeah, but
it's not probably quite the level that you're getting in Canada.
No, but we're also like set up to deal with it. We have every tool for dealing with the cold and the snow, and we're built to stay warm. So I think in a way, it's a lot easier when you're from a cold country when it's cold than if it's a place that doesn't usually cold, that gets a cold snap and obviously has none of the resources to manage it, and you don't have winter boots or winter coat.
No, we don't take our cold seriously. And as I say, they often what they say is that like we didn't know whether to build our houses for the heat or the cold, so we did neither. And we just built our houses to not cope with any temperature. So, but I love talking about the cold. And I think a major scene in A Fate Dinned in Blood was when they were like decided to go over the mountain because Snorri was like, well, I want to get there as quick as possible. So let's go over this like treacherous mountain that's like crazy cold. And then
No, Bjorn would like you to know it's just a hill.
okay, not a mountain. And then she nearly like dies because she falls in the water and then she gets ridiculously cold and she's nearly there dying of hypothermia, and it's only Bjorn who kind of keeps her alive at that
Yeah,
stage.
he does, doesn't he?
Yeah. I have to tell you an anecdote. So I read this book. I went to India for work. And so I read this book on the plane ride back. And I was like delirious, like hadn't slept in forever because I cannot sleep on planes. And it was freezing on this airplane that I was on.
I hate that.
And I was reading this section of the book and I was like, I feel like I'm really cold. Like it made me extra cold on this plane ride.
The cuddling for warmth trope is one of my favorites.
Ooh.
So I was delighted to be able to use it.
I tried to cuddle my husband and he was like, I'm sleeping, leave me alone. Not a Bjorn, unfortunately.
I think this explains though, because I hate cold climates and I like a warm climate. A few people have said to me, oh, have you read The Bridge Kingdom? And I'm like, of course I've read The Bridge Kingdom because it's one of the few books we have which is really set in a hot tropical environment. And yeah, I love that, it's one of the few books out there that if you actually want a romance that's more set in this as a hot tropical, hot springs environment with typhoons and all that sort of thing, that's actually your book. So was that a little bit of what inspired that to be more of a hot sort of tropical environment, was getting away from Canada?
Not consciously, but maybe subconsciously.
Maybe subconsciously, yeah.
I knew once I had sort of decided on the tempest seas being impassable and that being like the big hindrance to trade and therefore the bridge which is going through it, then of course it brings to mind like Central America, and obviously it's a bit different, but when you get that in your head, you kind of have the tropical mentality, and having visited Costa Rica and been down into Central America in a few of those countries, I sort of know, even though it's nowhere that I've lived, I know what it feels like to be in that ultra humid, wet, hot, plant-rich environment. I know.
Speaking my language right here. This is just every holiday for me is aimed towards somewhere hot. So I'm just like, love it. Poisonous snakes, don't even care.
I care about
very cold when I read that scene. I live in Salt Lake City, Utah, and I love the cold. I love the snow. It's 10 degrees, 50 degrees is like the ideal temperature for me, like that's like summer weather. So long-time listeners of this podcast will know that I have a particular trope that anytime a book has this, I'm like immediate read. And that is a hot spring. And you have some fantastic hot springs in your books.
Okay, yes, I do. And the reason for that is twofold. One, it's naturally a romantic situation.
It's so romantic.
You're naked, obviously.
Yeah.
And the hot springs at Midwatch in Ithaca are inspired by the hot springs in Costa Rica. So I like, if you look at my inspiration photos that I have floating around, they're from that particular location. But so obviously it's romantic, it's sensual and all that sort of stuff. But also when you're running around and like doing badass things, you get sweaty, you get dirty, you get bloody. You need to get clean before you do the deed.
Yeah.
So I am always looking for ways to like have my characters not be like totally disgustingly filthy because
when they haven't like washed in a month.
Yeah, like that's gross. He's not going to smell like fjords and pine needles if he hasn't bathed in a month. I'm sorry, that is not the smell. That is not the
No,
base.
no.
Even if he hasn't bathed in like 3 days, he's not going to
Yeah, exactly.
pine needles.
So it is a twofold thing. It's one, because it is a sensual setting, but two, because I want them to not be dirty. Because that is not one of my things.
Personally love a hot spring. Are you a hot
Yeah.
spring person? Yeah, I love hot springs. My husband and I have a tradition where every year for our wedding anniversary, we go to a hot spring somewhere. And so we've gotten to go, like we did our honeymoon in Iceland. We've done hot springs kind of, here in the States and a couple elsewhere internationally. And it's just like, because of that, because it is also so romantic to me, I'm like, I want a hot spring. I want a hot spring in every book. Every book
Yeah,
ever should have a hot spring.
Fortunately, they're pretty common.
They are, yeah.
In Romantasy. Like I think there's a lot of authors that are on the same brain space as me, and they're like, I need to get them to be less dirty.
I love now that I understand why we see it in nearly all your books now, because you're just like, I want to get them clean and it's going to be romantic. So insert hot spring. I love the setup you have in the Bridge Kingdom, and kind of my mental image of like where they live and that they're in these rooms, and then they've got this adjoining hot spring in between the rooms. Like that scene, I absolutely love that scene when Lara like drugs Aaron and then sneaks into his room, and then he wakes up, and then she has to dab some poison on her lips to have this passionate embrace, drug him again, and then try and get herself back through the hot spring back into her own room. That was one of my favorite scenes.
I do love that scene, and it's a shame that he had a tantrum at the end and burned that house down because it was
It's so sad. It's so upsetting. In my head, I want them to just be living there for all of time.
No, I think that he is going to, judging from a few, I'm thinking he's going to have to rebuild that house for her, because
I think so.
Lara is like, seriously, you burned my house down.
Exactly. And I'm sure that hot spring would have survived. And I feel
like it was naturally occurring. It's still there. He just has to.
And they don't need separate bedrooms. They rebuild it with a joint bedroom that leads out to the hot spring, and then they're good.
It's just a little vacation house.
Yeah,
exactly.
Away from all the trials and tribulations of being rulers. Although I'm not done. They've still got work to do. So they don't get to relax into their honeymoon phase of life quite yet. I've read book 5 because I wrote it. But, book 6 too is also going to be a little bit of an ordeal for them. So yeah, they are not relaxing at all quite yet.
Oh, that's exciting here. Well, that's actually a good segue to say, tell us about book 5 that you are, I think, very close to, aim to release later this year, October, I think.
Yeah, that is the date that we've talked about. We should be posting dates soon. But it will be first on Audible because it's an Audible original series, and then it will come out 6 months later-ish with Del Rey in ebook and paperback. So I am really I have been wanting to write Anna's story for so many years. It's just it had to wait because on the timeline it came after Karis and Zara. So I have had her story sitting in the beginning of it, actually just sitting in a file on my computer for the longest time. And it's another forbidden romance. So not enemies to lovers, very much a forbidden romance. And there's lots of clues that are dropped by Karis and Aaron in their conversations, and a little bit with Karis's conversations with Anna in Endless War that tease to the plot. But James is the hero, and he is the bastard half-brother of the crown prince that Anna is supposed to marry.
That's exciting. That sounds really exciting.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it is Harrendale, as I've alluded to throughout all the other books, is this highly political court politics type place. And so it's very much in my wheelhouse of everybody has their own plans. Everybody has their own agenda. Everybody is conspiring. And Anna, having not really been raised in that type of environment, because her family is not that way. It is very much a fish out of water situation. And she quickly realizes that she's out of her depths. So it was a very fun book to write. There's lots of exciting stuff. And
I'm
lots
so
of
excited. So excited. As an estimate, how many pages can we kind of expect from this book as an approximate?
It is, how long is it?
I say this because like Fading in Blood was one of the few books this year that I could have done with like another 100 pages. I was like, I'm not finished.
A lot of that has to do, like, they're not short books. It's not like, I consider page number to be a very inaccurate measurement of length, because you can change the number of pages by changing the font size, the spacing, the margins. And so A Fadington Blood was about 130,000 words. So that's longer than Bridge Kingdom, longer than Traitor Queen, not quite as long as Endless War. I think that book 5 is about 130,000 words. So longer than the first two books, but slightly shorter than the second two books. But yeah, so people are always like, how many? I'm like, I don't know how many pages it is.
I know. We're just all, well, that's right. Word count's also good.
Yeah,
we're just like,
Fate's not short by any stretch of the imagination, but it's also not like a 200,000 word beast either.
No,
so.
But I think you're quite a master at editing, because I felt like it was just entertaining the whole way through. You didn't have those kind of lulls where you're like, this didn't need to be here. Like everything was just boom, boom, boom. So you were just, as I say, so you ended up just devouring the book in kind of like, in like 2 days, because it was just constantly entertaining, which.
Well, thank you. Yeah. I mean, I don't find it hard. I have several extremely long books. It's not harder to write a long book in the sense of creativity, because you have it. It's just timed at the time that it takes to write. It does take longer to edit because it's just longer, but it's not actually harder to write a long book than it is to write a short book. I think in a lot of ways, writing a very good short book that feels like it has everything that you need in it is the greater challenge.
Definitely.
And, the people who are writing 70 and 80,000 word books, I don't even know how they do it, because I'm just typing away. It's getting longer and longer and longer.
Getting your character from point A to point B in a tight time frame is not easy.
Yeah. No, I think it is definitely an art to be able to write a really good short book, and it's not an art that I possess. So, yeah.
Wow. I'm thinking we're nearly ready to jump onto games. Ali, do you have any final questions you want to ask?
No, I think we're good. I do think we wanted to ask about the Dark Shore, Nicole. I know I can't let you forget to ask that question.
No, I'll be disappointed if I do. I wanted to ask because I loved your Dark Shores, and particularly Gilded Serpent. Like Gilded Serpent just took it to the next level, and we got left on an absolute cliffhanger at the end of that book. And I think I've seen you talk about it in the past and say that the fourth book's kind of been shelved at this point in time. Are there any updates on that? What? It's done?
No. Okay. So I will tell you the full story. Okay. Dark Shores came out in 2019, and Dark Skies, the sequel, in 2020, right in the middle of, I guess it would have been 2020. My date's right. Yeah. Anyway, Dark Skies came out right in the middle of US lockdown for COVID. It really, people were not at that particular moment engaged with reading the way that they, it did grow later as people were looking for things to do. But in that moment, we were all very caught up in the moment. And that release did absolutely horribly. And I was not at a point where I had enough social media power, influence to be able to, push it out and to turn it into a success. And so, of course, if people don't read the second book, they don't read the third book. And so the sales for the series were quite low, even though response to it was really quite good. And I was super upset about it. Sorry, someone's calling me. And the publisher, Tortine, declined to publish the last book, was what happened, because the sales just didn't justify it. It was a combination of bad luck. A lot of people don't read series until they're all out. So, people are saying, well, I'll just wait for it all to come out, and they weren't buying them. And so the sales were just bad. And I did not want to give up on that series because it was my favorite series. It still is my favorite series. I think it's my best series. And so I was working on independently publishing it, whilst also still working on the books that were, making my career, which were the Bridge Kingdom books.
Yeah.
And Bridge Kingdom really took off, and that did help and elevate Dark Shore's sales, because it does pull up backlist. But it was when Del Rey acquired A Fading Dim Blood that we're able to go back to the publisher and say, will you reconsider? Will you publish it? And the reason I wanted to do it with them is it's very hard to be successful with the last book in the series independently. You can't control cover changes. You can't control pricing. You can't do sales. You can't do anything. And so it would have there was no chance of, I would have probably lost money on producing that book. So it was really important for me to have them involved. But unfortunately, the book has always had to kind of sit on the back burner, because the, Fates, Saga of the Unfated and Bridge Kingdom, those are the ones that are the most popular. They're the ones that pay my bills, for lack of a better way of putting it. And so Dark Shores did kind of get pushed a lot, and it does not get prioritized in the same way as the other series do. Not because I don't love it, not because I don't think it's amazing, but because it's just not, I'm not able to do that because of business decisions. However, it is coming out. It is written. It's in its last round of editorial. So it should be going into like copy edits, line edits this summer. And it is scheduled to release in August of next year. So it's definitely coming. But it is also it's about 230,000 words. So it is.
Because Gilded Serpent is chunky. Like it is solid. Like it's like
this one was even longer. So because there was so much to wrap up. And I mean, I love the story. I'm like,
same.
It's too soon for me to kind of get into the details and to start promoting it, but I'm so excited to release that book. And it has been such a frustration not being able to make it my number one priority, and to, not just make the emotional decision, but make like the good author business decisions. People will say what they will say, but for me, it was always incredibly difficult to not make that my number one priority, because I love that series so much. But it is, it's written, and I know what happens, and you better make sure that you have
I'm here with bated breath waiting for that. I'm so excited to hear that. And that must be so hard and frustrating, particularly if you do feel like it's sort of your favorite thing that you've potentially written, and to maybe not have that audience response you're expecting. As you said, I really do think there was huge time factors there. You're looking at COVID, you were looking at just a time where, and just that even just Romantasy hadn't truly taken off the way it is now. I think as challenging as this has been, hopefully the timing is actually good now that just, I feel like I've seen you as a writer just go from strength to strength in the last, year or two with, Bridge Kingdom, and now Fate Inked in Blood, just taking the Romantasy world by storm. So hopefully everyone is going to get onto this series when it gets released.
I really, really hope so. And honestly, yes, it has not been prioritized because of those books, but it is because of those books that it was picked up and that it is being published. So you can't resent them too much, because they did allow the opportunity. They boosted my career in a way that made publishing the final book in the series compelling as a business decision for the publisher, because it is a business for them. They would not make money, and they would be out of business if they just constantly made emotional decisions. So never would I want anyone to attack them for the decisions that they made, because it's a business, and they have to invest money where they think that they're going to make money. It's not charity. So it is working out in the end. So it has taken a lot longer than I would have liked, but It's coming, and
Almost
then
forget
she'll
it.
be a completed whole series for all those people
I'm
who
just
don't like to start series until they're done.
That's right. People can go get all 4 books, can just like have a couple of weeks off work and just commit themselves just
Yeah.
for like a full month of just pure enjoyment. No, I'm sure it's going to be really exciting. Just very quickly, I just wanted to quickly ask, how have you found like Bookstagram and Book Talk and this whole kind of social media that we now have that is so behind all these books? What's sort of been your experience from an author's perspective of people getting behind these books now?
It has been very good to me. Book Talk, of course, was very supportive of Bridge Kingdom and really elevated that series. So I feel extremely positive and blessed that that happened. But of course, it comes with its own pain. I mean, uh, social media is not kind. We all know this, and so I think that more and more authors are having to have to put up mental health barriers between themselves and their social media followings, just because there is, while there's of course tons of positivity, there is also a ton of negativity, and you know, most people are quite negatively impacted by that. Not
Yeah.
everybody, but most people, and so to try and be creative and to try and write books when you are seeing I find it's not that often that you're necessarily tagged in bad things, but if somebody tags you in something good and you go to comment and the first comment there is, I thought this book was like the worst, I DNF'd it, I thought the character was stupid, you you're not seeking it out, but in the common, like
Hits
in the
you.
course of engagement, you see the things that people are sort of, they're not saying it they're not saying it to you, they're not saying it behind your back, they're just kind of saying it and you see it. It can really like get into your headspace. And so yeah, I mean, it's good and bad, but I think that
Yeah.
it's that way for everybody, not just authors. I think that for all people, there's something to be gained from the connectivity, but there's also something to be lost in, doom scrolling and negative comment culture and
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
those things.
Yeah.
And I think it's something
It's
that
it's always risky, isn't it? And it is important to kind of keep that separation a little bit, because as just human nature that we tend to always remember the negative and we stop focusing on the like the 100 positive comments there that are saying how much they loved it. We unfortunately catch those couple that are not positive, and they sometimes stick with us. But as I say, we like to stay in a really, we just love to celebrate these books. We tend to always just talk about the things that we love. And as I say, we're just creating these worlds, and that we're so excited. And I think sometimes people forget that they are just stories. Some people get so engrossed in them that they get,
Mhm.
that they get too passionate. But we love to just keep things really happy and positive. And as I say, we're just always so thankful for the effort you put in these amazing worlds that you create. So and that goes for all authors out there. So without further ado, let's jump into games.
Okay. Hit me.
All right. So I've got my rapid fire questions, and for
Okay.
my rapid fire questions, I'm going to put on my special hat that I'm going to that I prepared earlier in celebration of A Fate Inked in Blood. I thought I would bring this lovely piece right here that my husband brought back from a work trip.
Perfect.
Little Viking hat.
Perfect.
I don't know, Viking. I even feel like it's got like a bit of a Daughter of Hell theme because it's red. So there we go.
Yeah, I
Okay.
definitely. Freya's, I'm sure, wearing something very similar in the next book.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure it jingles when she moves it around. Okay, so the aim of this game is to answer these questions as quickly as possible without giving too much detail. We absolutely do allow detail because we obviously love to get every little thought that comes out of your mind, because we love that with our authors. But you try and say the answers as quickly as possible.
Okay.
So, are you ready?
I am.
Okay. What is your favorite type of MMC? Hero, morally grey, or a villain?
Morally grey.
Do you like a happy ending where everyone lives happily ever after, or a tragic ending that breaks the reader's soul into a million pieces?
A blend of it, because I want both feelings. I want the
You want
readers
the
to feel
pain
both
and the happy.
feelings, happy and heartbroken. That's my goal, is to have both at the same time.
What kind of FMC do you prefer? A girl who falls for the morally grey Viking or the girl who is the morally grey Viking?
Is the morally grey Viking.
Yes. Who is more badass as an FMC, Lara or Freya?
Lara's meaner.
I think so.
That'd be my guess as well. Okay,
Yeah,
what is your
Freya's a little bit got more kindness in her heart. So,
yeah, Lara's been like built to kill. She's not taking any prisoners.
Freya actually feels bad when she kills people. Lara doesn't.
Yeah.
What is your ultimate MMC physical looks? Tall, dark, and rugged, or blonde, chiseled with piercing blue eyes?
Tall, dark, and rugged. Well, I actually really like the cerebral hero. So, the one that will solve the problems with his cleverness over brawn. That's my chef's kiss. So,
yeah.
The aesthetic package that he comes in is less important than him being like the bookish, smart type.
That's it. I love it. Who is your biggest inspiration for your novels?
Biggest inspiration for my novels. Life is my biggest inspiration. So it all kind of goes into the mind palace and filters up. So I think the more that you can experience and the more that you see and endure in your life, the better your fiction becomes.
I love that. Love that. If you could be someone from one of your books for one day, who would you be and why?
I would be Lara because I'd be so dangerous.
Yeah.
Then I feel bad later of all the bad things that I did.
We only did it for like 24 hours, so it'd be okay.
Yeah, how many people could she kill in 24 hours?
I think a lot.
She probably could. What is your favorite thing about the world you created?
Which world?
Either world. Do you? Maybe we'll say A Fate Inked in Blood.
My favorite thing that I created in A Fate Inked in Blood is I would say, gosh, that's hard. My favorite thing that I created in A Fate Inked in Blood is Bjorn. No.
I wholeheartedly support that.
The thing that I created was the drug, which they fight in the tunnels.
Yeah, those were pretty scary.
Yes.
Okay.
It was like scary. Yes.
Yeah.
All right, very good. But I'm also like happy with your answer for Beyond because that is also a really accurate answer. He's probably my favorite thing too.
He's he's my favorite positive thing.
Yeah.
But I tend to really like the exciting, dangerous, villainous things from an entertainment standpoint.
Yeah. What is your favorite non-bookish activity? What do you like to do when you're not writing or reading?
Sleep.
That's just like the true mum like answer right there.
Yes, I do like to sleep, but if we're talking about activity of the waking mind, I really like to watch like Netflix with a glass of wine or to have a bath with an audiobook and a glass of wine.
That's what we love as well.
Yeah.
You're speaking to your people right here. Yeah. That's our favorite thing to do. What is your favorite trope and what is your least favorite trope?
My favorite trope is it's very specific, and I didn't quite do it in Fate, but I did it close, is that when you fall through the ice on a frozen lake and someone pulls you out and then you have to both take your clothes off to cuddle for warmth.
Yeah.
So I need to write that very specific scene. It has to occur at some point because I've come close, but not close enough. So that's my favorite.
Yeah. Yeah.
My least favorite is Fated Mates. Don't like it. I want my girls to be choosing.
Yeah. Free choice. You want that.
Sorry, all you fae people that love it. Shifter people and Romantasy people in general that love fated mates.
I love
No,
it when
I
it's
love
good.
it.
That's what I
Like-
really like. I love it when they are, but then like they're, you know, like I've read some good books where then they also have to choose, and it's like, okay, that's what I like.
Yeah, that's more interesting to me.
Yeah.
And I just like it if it's like they say that they are, but it isn't. It never is really developed, so I can just pretend that it was never said.
That's right. You want your strong, independent female main character to make her
That's
own
why
choices.
when I
love that.
created, I wrote in a world, in a mythology that believes in like, you know, fate, and that fate has already been decided, and that all is known. That I created a female character who is outside that rule. So
Yeah.
I don't like the idea of fate or destiny already haven't been decided.
That's it. All right. What can you describe what you think is your scariest type of villain? What is the scariest type of villain? Would they be like sadistic, intelligent? Is it a monster? What do you think is the scariest type of villain?
My villains are almost all extremely dangerous because they are intelligent. And in most cases, smarter than the protagonists. I spend an awful lot of time on my villains, developing them. They're like some of my favorite characters to write. So I really like the ultra clever villain. I think the only villain that I've written that is not like incredibly intelligent is Silas, which is Lara's father. But he has the magpie, who is his like evil sidekick, who is super intelligent. So
exactly, we underestimate the importance of a really good villain and how important they are to a story.
Villains and villainy. I want it to seem almost impossible to defeat my villains, and like it might actually be that my protagonists are not capable of defeating them. I want you to have that like be questioning of whether or not the villain's actually going to win in my story. If you're starting to wonder that that might happen, I feel like I have done my job.
All right. What is your ultimate spice level? Mild spice, medium spice, hot spice, very hot spice. So hot you're dying, but if you had to die, it's probably a good way to go.
I like really, 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 really spicy, but I don't like it when the plot serves the spice.
Yeah.
I want the spice to be the cherry on top for the plot. So I prefer it to be on the page and steamy when we do get to those moments, and they can be super, super spicy. And I'm totally good with that. But I don't like it when it seems as though we're just, the plot is just taking us from one sex scene to the other. To me, that's erotica. It's a genre that I have read, but I don't find all that interesting.
No, it's not what you're aiming for. No, I very much agree. You don't want it taking over from your plot.
So
Is it okay? Is it okay to kill off a main character?
Yeah.
Straight to the point. Be scared, people. Be very scared. What would be one surprise fans could expect in the sequel of A Fate Inked in Blood?
There's a lot. I will say that there's some twists in this book that are the best twists that I've ever written.
Ooh,
that is.
I honestly might actually cry if people don't like it, because I feel like I'm feeling like really puffed up and like pleased with myself about them. So if you all shoot me down and give 3-star reviews, predictable twist, I might just like be like, I'm done.
Oh, I'm gonna be like theorizing now. I'm gonna be like, how big a twist are we talking? Like, yeah, oh my gosh, I'm gonna like, yeah, that's pretty exciting.
I wouldn't say that I'm necessarily an author who's known for like ultra crazy twists, but this I think I've done it in this one.
Love it. I love it. I love a good twist.
I love a twist. I love to be sucker punched with the book.
Yeah, but a twist has to be earned. Like it has to be like you don't see it coming, but when you go back and you do a reread, you're like, oh, every time you see the clues. And so it's not a twist if like lots of times like new writers, they'll call it a twist, but it's actually just pulling a fast one on the reader because there is no foreshadowing. There's nothing that like leads to it. So of course nobody can predict it because it literally comes out of nowhere. That's not good writing. So
Okay. Will we get any more hot spring spice scenes in your future books?
Hot springs. Just sauna.
I think that's like it's the same general area. Yeah.
No, I did sauna in Gilded Serpent.
Mm-hmm.
So I do have, there is a sauna in the second book.
Oh,
will that meet the requirements, Ali?
I think so. I think the point is
you're
that
warm
and
clean
steam and clean and your clothes are off. That's kind of like the three things that have to be there. Yeah.
We'll see if I can fit a sauna in the 6th Bridge Kingdom book or a hot spring.
Or a hot spring.
But I think it might be the cold plunge into the frozen lake. I'm going to try.
You might try.
I have my heart set on that trope in that book. So,
well, I guess they get clean in that as well. Right?
Frozen, but clean.
Yeah.
All right, this jumps us into our next question. What is the best romantic environment? Hot, humid, and tropical with luscious rainforest and a private hot spring, or wintry ice realm castle with a roaring fire and one bed?
Oh,
I know, they're both so good.
I'm going to say the cold one because there's no bugs. I don't like bugs and spiders. I can never live in Australia. I don't like crawly things. There's no bugs in the cold castle.
Yeah,
that's true. That's right. That's right.
There's no bugs. Yeah,
it'd be a great location after that ice plunge to go into a room like that with the roaring fire and some fir throws to defrost body to body together. That could work really well. So, okay, final question. Who, in your opinion, is the hotter MMC, Bjorn or King Aaron?
Bjorn, 100%.
Oh, wasn't even a question.
Aaron is like really low down on my hero list. I know everybody loves him, but
I love Aaron. I love Aaron. I probably would have said, I don't know. It would have been a toss-up for me too.
No, he's my least favorite Bridge Kingdom hero. I'm not selling my books.
Like, don't even read those books.
You're selling love with nothing.
For clarity, this is not, my opinion is not the common opinion, but because I like the more cerebral guy who's a thinker and a solver with his mind.
Well,
okay, Aaron's lucky that his wife is super smart.
Yeah. If the question was Bjorn or Karis, how do you answer that one? Because I do also, I love how smart Karis is.
Karis?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I would say Karis.
Yeah.
Okay, good to know. We've got them ranked.
I know. We know the ranking now. We know.
I would say it's Marcus is number 1, and then Karis. Bjorn and James would be pretty close to tied. Aaron and Killian.
Okay.
Killian's the lowest.
I don't like cinnamon rolls.
I don't either. I'm not a cinnamon roll girl.
I know that lots of people love them, like the golden retriever type guy, but
I don't know why. I still loved him so much.
I love him, and he's a good character. Like I like him as a character. But if we're talking about like what is your love interest type, Aaron and Killian are not so much my types, but I try to write them all different. I want all my guys to be unique. I don't want to write the same hero one after over and over and over again. So I want it to seem like all these different guys and they're totally different. And it does mean that people are going to love one character more than another character because they're so different. And that's what I want. So I think it's hilarious when my Facebook group gets at each other on who's better. And I just like fuel the fire by weighing in with my own opinions. But I would say like Killian is incredibly, I would say he's more popular than Marcus as far as Dark Shores readers go. So
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's just the magic and that as well. He's got that added
he's got like, he's got the brawn thing going because, you know, he's the god mark.
Yeah, I feel like I didn't notice him as a cinnamon roll that much, but maybe I just got like enamored with the brawn and was like,
yeah, well, he's very kind and honorable, and I like morally gray and not that honorable.
I know, but look, you know, we're not always fussy. All these options are actually pretty good options, in my opinion. Like, they're all pretty great. And I love that you have made them all different. Everyone can kind of have their own little one that they're like, oh, I really love this particular one. But it's very interesting.
It is funny because I have to get into my Facebook group, you have to say who your favorite, I think I still have that setting where you have to answer with like who your favorite Bridge Kingdom character is.
And do you like
people always write RN, obviously. I'm like,
deny. You're not coming to this group.
just I'm joking. I will let you in if you give a valid answer. But the people who are like, I think Karis is amazing, I'm like, I think you're great too.
I love that. All right. That's it. Thank you so much. I'm going to take that hat off and stop jingling away. Thank you for doing our rapid fire questions. We will try to do our very last little game now. If you've got another 5 minutes,
sure.
Ellie, you want to?
Yeah, if you've got the time, we've got the time. So we will play a Romantasy Readers classic game, which is Screw, Marry, Kill, and we have got characters from the Bridge Kingdom and the Fate Inked in Blood. So got a nice little grouping here. So I'm going to do 3, and then you can kind of tell us your answers. So first 3, we'll see what we get. So we have Freya, we have Saren, and we have Laura. That's an interesting pairing. Sometimes we draw randomly. We don't prepare them, so you never know what you're going to get.
Okay, well, obviously I'm going to kill Saren.
Obviously.
I would marry Freya and screw Laura.
Yeah, I think Laura's a good one night stand, and Freya's gonna have the kindness to build a marriage on.
Plus, Freya's a really good cook. I'm a terrible cook.
That's
it. Let's see. For me, I would obviously kill Saren, but I would probably marry Lara because I'd be scared that if I just screwed her, she might kill me. So I feel like I'd marry her on that ground.
Yeah, that you might just be like you just get roped into it. Out of fear.
Forced marriage.
Yeah.
Okay, we have Bjorn, Hiln. I don't know if it's Hiln or Helen, and Aaron. So that's a little bit more of an interesting pairing there.
Sorry, Bjorn. And then who else do we have? Bjorn,
Aaron, and Hiln. I don't know.
The goddess?
The goddess. Yeah, the goddess. You can tell I just read the books because I don't ever know how to say their names.
If you go on my website, I have a pronunciation guide for Fate Inked in Blood with that audio narrator says all of the names.
I'm going to need that. I'm going to
names properly so we can actually try to completely butcher them.
Well, they're hard because their phonics are different than English. So there's no reason you would know. Okay. This is hard.
Who have we got? We've got Aaron.
I would kill Aaron.
That one.
Not your favorite.
No. I would screw Lynn, and maybe I could get a god baby.
Oh yeah.
And I would marry Bjorn. Yeah.
See, I'm marrying Aaron. I love Aaron. He's my guy.
He's got that hot spring out the back.
Yeah, I'm really just marrying him for the hot spring.
I know. I should not do. I always laugh because like it's the first book in the series, so I should be like, oh yeah, he's so hot. I love him so much. Instead, I'm like, no, never mind him. Wait till you get to the second hero.
Yeah.
I always like that. Well, I think it's like you create them first, and then you have someone that you like even more, and you're like, oh snap! Now I've really done it with Karis.
I created Aaron for Lara, so You can't have two Laras together. Like if
No.
you put like, I mean, obviously Karis and Lara are siblings, and this is not George R. R. Martin novels, so they're not going to get together. But they aren't a good romantic match because they're very similar, and so there's no compliment. It's
Mhm.
not. It's too much the same. You want a complementary character to go with your heroines. So I am always creating the guy that I think is perfect for the girl.
Girl. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he's the perfect man for our murder Barbie Lara,
Murder
but not
Barbie is Murder Barbie. That's
me.
really, yeah. I've never heard her described that way. I don't know if people do that on the internet a lot, but
It's how I describe her.
She's got the blonde hair. Yeah.
Like, that is-
Okay. This pairing is a little interesting. So we have Karis, your
Mhm.
guy Karis. Then we have Silas, his father. And then we have Vragi, Freya's original husband.
Oh, geez. I wonder what you're going to pick.
So
I'm gonna kill Vragi because I really don't like
Awful.
that guy.
sucks. Yeah. He's the worst.
Well, obviously I'm gonna marry Karis.
Yeah.
And I
you
guess
say.
I'm gonna have to take one for the team and sleep with Silas. He's had a harem. Maybe he's secretly really good in bed. He has an entire harem full of wives, so maybe he actually has some like mad bedroom skills that I just never talked about.
Yeah. Yeah.
We'll just pretend that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I would sleep with Rocky just because it's like one and done. Move on with your life. Silas really scares me. He's
Yeah. He could sink his fangs in somehow and then like manipulate you. And yeah.
yeah.
Plus, he's the villain of your boyfriend Aaron's story. So
Yeah, exactly.
it's like you have to kill him.
Yeah, I have to. Okay, next pairing we have Bronwyn, who is my favorite of Laura's sisters.
Oh, she's in Bridge Kingdom 5.
Oh, that's exciting. I'm excited for that. I really like Bronwyn. Anna. And then I'm gonna do this one terribly, but Snorri's wife. Ylva. Thank you. Those are your three. Ylva.
I will kill Ylva.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I will marry Anna. And I will sleep with Bronwyn.
Yeah. I agree with that wholeheartedly.
I think I'm gonna marry Bronwyn just because I like her so much, and she seems like a really good, partner and spouse to her husband, at least so far.
That's Serena. You're thinking Serena.
Oh, I am thinking
is the one that gets shot with the arrow, takes the arrow.
Right. Dang it. I am thinking of Serena. I do really like Bronwyn too. So I agree with your choices.
Yeah.
Okay, last pairing. We have Zara,
Mm-hmm.
Otis,
Chunk.
and I just got to the scene in the second 3 when he's killed in my audiobook and my reread, and so that's why I was thinking of Otis. Otis, because I literally not like last night. And Snorri. So this is a tough one. Snorri, Otis, and Zara.
Okay, I would marry Zara.
Yeah.
I would kill Snorri.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd hook up with Otis.
Yeah.
One last hurrah before he takes his final flight.
Yeah. All right. That was Screw, Marry, Kill. Thank you. Thanks.
All right. I think I've married most of my heroines at this point.
Yeah. They're always the best. So
exactly. We love our strong female characters. Oh, well, thank you so much for joining us today. Before we finish up, is there anything, if people want to get your books or if they want to hear more about the books that are coming out like later this year or next year, what is the best way to keep up to date with you and where to find your books?
Website is always up to date. I have a newsletter, so anything really important is going to go out and it will hit your inbox. I don't send that many, so you don't have to worry about me spamming you. And then Instagram is probably the best place to get all of my books. As far as what's coming up, we have the Audible release of Bridge Kingdom 5. We're going to be sharing the title for that fairly soon. We have the re-release on the first 4 Bridge Kingdom books with Del Rey. Those new covers are absolutely gorgeous, and we'll be sharing them soon. So look forward to that. So that will be people in North America who can access those editions, or anybody overseas who cares to pay for shipping. And the sequel to A Fadington Blood, we should also have a cover for that. We have the cover ready, and the title, obviously. And we will be sharing that sometime this summer. So look forward to that. And the book will be out next year. And that will be, the second half of the duology. So the duology will be complete. So again, you people who need the full meal deal before you start reading, I'm here for you. It's coming. And then the last Dark Shores book in August. So it's going to be a very busy next 12 months for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
You have been doing an amazing job. Like even this year, you've released 2 books really, with Fadington Blood and then potentially Bridge Kingdom 5 coming out later this year. I imagine that's a lot of writing. That's a lot of hard work. And then looking for quite a few being released in 2025.
Yeah, it's been very busy. So that's why my favorite hobby is sleeping.
But I also love your covers. I'm always looking at those beautiful French covers you have. And while I can't actually obviously read a word of it, they are stunning. So
Yeah,
I cannot wait to see what
They're
these
French. They're very good at what they do.
Yeah, I know. You just want them on your wall, even if you can't read them. They're just so pretty. So, no. Well, thank you so much for coming along today. We've really appreciated you spending the time. Yes, obviously, guys, if you want to speak to us or hear more about Danielle Jensen, please jump on her Instagram or jump onto Book Lovaholic or Alley Cats and Books. And we're at Romantasy Readers on Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, all the areas where you get a podcast. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next time.
Hi, thank you.